Hello and welcome to Enchantment of Eternity's review for Mr. Robot Season 3, Episode 9, Stage 3. This video is part of a series of videos where I review episodes of Mr. Robot, so I have to start with a spoiler warning for Mr. Robot up to Season 3, Episode 9. If you haven't seen it up to this point, you may not want to watch this video, otherwise some things may be spoiled for you. So, first off, this is more like it. This was an amazingly tense nail biter of an episode. Like this whole episode, I was like on edge, I was uneasy, and I say that has a great thing. This is one suspenseful episode, and even though it is mainly just a setup episode, it is mainly just setting us up for the finale, but who cares? It does such an amazing job at it, and I'm so like tickled pink of where they're taking the show now. So, I am very, very much looking forward to the finale. I think this episode has me hyped for that. I do hope that the finale is somewhat, I hope we get somewhat of a conclusion. I hope it doesn't just leave everything up in the air, kind of like the Season 2 finale did. I hope it's a bit more conclusive. But, I do know that regardless, we are in for one hell of a cliffhanger next week. I realize that the wait for Season 4 is going to feel like an eternity. Regardless, I know that's what's going to happen. I know the finale is going to end with a freaking I want to know. But still, within those boundaries, knowing that, I do hope there is some sort of a conclusion to that episode. It's not just a kind of fluff setup, kind of like Season 2 finale was. The scariest thing of everything is the fact that Mr. Robot has not been renewed for Season 4 yet. Like, I'm not sure what the ratings have been like for Season 3 compared to other seasons, but hopefully, like, word of mouth will come around, because Season 3 has been fucking amazing. It's been one of the best seasons of television ever out there. And I remember watching this, like, there used to be a recap show for Season 2, and I was watching the people who were involved, and they were, like, high-fiving each other because they don't watch Mr. Robot anymore. Like, oh, you gave up on Mr. Robot? Yeah, I gave up too. Great, we don't watch that show because it sucks now. I'm like, guys, you're dumb! You're dumb! You're missing out on the best. You watch it and review it while the show wasn't that good, and then you quit when it becomes amazing. You'll regret that. Hopefully more people will start to come back to the show, because Season 3, again. Anyway, let me get into this episode now. So, let me start with Angela, because, yeah, that train has left the station. I mean, we've gotten hints of this in the past couple of episodes, but man, is she totally off the walls. Like, they show her apartment, her bread is all moldy, there's like dirty dishes just lying around everywhere. She's like, you know, pushing this cart around like she's some sort of, homeless person. But one thing I did notice, the fish. She had a fish. Is that the same fish that, like, White Rose kept saying, save the fish, save the fish, and then the fish died? Is that, like, so is that hinting that White Rose somehow brought this fish back to life using time travel, or maybe just pretended to? And so Angela's still talking, and she's gone completely paranoid, of course, when she sees, Elliot and sees Leon. She's like, oh, you're in on it, you're trying to blah blah. But she is right about one thing. Elliot is trying to stop White Rose. And so you can't say, even though she's completely lost it, she is actually correct about that one thing. And of course, oh yeah, and her father keeps calling her, and she just dumps the phone in the water. Now, she gets picked up by some guys in the street, and she's like, I'm ready. So I think it's obvious that she thinks they're with White Rose and the Dark Army, but I think they're with Price. And that is a subtle difference, actually. Have we kind of learned more in this episode, even though these two are sort of adversaries, they're kind of in on it the whole entire time. But there's a slight difference, and I think that's indicated by the flashback we get at the start of the episode, where we see sort of Price, going to all safe for the first time, and of course the other, that one dude, I can't even remember his name, who got fired and blamed for the hack or whatever at the start of season 1, and then Tyrell Wellick, of course, were with them, and they thought, oh, who are these clowns? Well, you're not going to hire them. But Price sees Angela, and he's getting the hots for her, so he's like, no, we're hiring them. And I wonder if it's as simple as that, because I talked about, like, in season 2, he was playing with Angela. Like, she was coming on to him at one time, and he rejected her. So, I don't know, I'm very confused. Like, apparently, maybe that's just not how he wanted her, or something, or maybe he doesn't want her in that way. He just sees her as, I don't know what the fuck's going on. I do know, like, it was indicated in the previous episodes that, Price used her to get back at White Rose, because White Rose wanted her taken out of the equation, so he purposely didn't do that, and that's what pissed White Rose off. So, it's very multi-layered. But I do think there is a simple attraction at the basis of all this, and otherwise, why show us that scene? So I think at the end of the episode, that was Price's people picking up Angela for some reason, and we will find out what that reason is next episode, hopefully. So, that was all very interesting. So let's talk about Elliot now. Stage 3. I love that was the name of this episode. When I first read the name of the episode a while ago, that would be Stage 3. I'm like, holy shit, there's a Stage 3? And of course I assumed this was like the Dark Army's plan. But Stage 3 is apparently just a, doesn't really exist. It's just a sleight of hand for Elliot to get the upper hand with the Dark Army, and I love that. And of course, I knew that from like the episode, and even like Elliot says in his moderation, where at the end of the episode is like, oh, but there's no Stage 3, but you knew this all along. Yes, I did know that all along, and I'm sure most of the audience picked up on that, especially when he met with the White Rose's second-hand man or whatever. And they scanned that, they put the thing in his computer. I knew, oh, come on. It's so obvious that he was infesting them with something. Of course, I could buy, though, that they wouldn't know that because they're very arrogant and they think they're 5 steps ahead of Elliot because, well, to be fair, they have been this whole time. So it's understandable that they would become complacent and be a bit sort of arrogant and think that they're unstoppable and not even succumb to the thing. It's kind of similar to what the Cisco did in season 1 with the CD he was handing out. And I love the callback to that, by the way, where we got with Angela coming across this guy handing out CDs. He's like, oh, I'm not going to be fooled this time. That was pretty funny. But it's basically what Elliot does and sets the stage for... And what a fucking cliffhanger. The episode ends with him saying, I own the Dark Army. And of course, we see White Rose and this, her second-hand man saying, go ahead and kill Elliot. So that's what I'm saying. I hope we get some sort of conclusion, even though I know it's going to end on a huge cliffhanger. There's no getting around that. But I hope there's, within some stores, some kind of conclusion, if you know what I'm talking about. Obviously, they're not going to include the whole story. We got 2 more years. Fucking renew the show. God damn it. So, they're not going to include everything, but some sort of, not just a sort of fluff episode. But anyway, other thing with Elliot that I love, of course, we get this sort of Mr. Robot flashbacks, which of course aren't really, is more for the audience, not Elliot. Elliot still has no fucking clue what was going on in the time he blacked out. Now, what I think is pretty interesting is that Mr. Robot and Elliot are pretty much on the same side now. They both want to take down the Dark Army. They just don't know it yet. And that's what I'm kind of hoping, most of all, we get a conclusion on in next week's episode. I hope we get an Elliot and Mr. Robot coming together. And I hope we get Krista involved in that too, because we had this last sort of hanging Chad there with Krista finding out that Elliot was involved in the hack, and that hasn't been touched on. So I hope we get some of that next week's episode, and I hope we see the Elliot and Mr. Robot come together, because they're on the same side now. They're working towards the same goal, maybe for slightly different reasons, but they both want to take down the Dark Army. course, I'm not sure if Mr. Robot is that big of a fan of undoing the 5-9 hack, but maybe, because apparently Elliot said that he saw what Elliot was planning so he could figure it out, so maybe he is, because he knows that would be a way to get back at the Dark Army, because we got that conversation between him and Tyrell where they're both realizing, so Tyrell's in on it too, they're both realizing that they have been played by the Dark Army all along, and they're being screwed with and powerless, and right back to the start, they're not gods, they're pawns. And I love that realization. I think, and we got this hint, and that's why I love this episode. It's so exciting, because we got this hint that for the first time in the entire show, that they are going to turn it around and actually be what they thought they were being this whole time. They are actually going to take on the powers that be, which are not just E-Corp, but the Dark Army, and that both of them have been manipulating him. Now it's time to fuck with them. But of course, the fact that they want to kill Elliot, which I was a bit surprising that they didn't kill Elliot already, but I suppose White Rose had sort of a soft spot for him. I don't know. But yeah, this is all going to be really fascinating, and I really do hope to see a sort of Mr. Robot and Elliot alliance at some point. Now, let me switch gears to Darlene, because I am curious if her getting arrested was part of the plan. I mean, opaquely, like, they obviously want the audience to believe that it wasn't part of the plan, but something like, there's something in the back of my head that's thinking, maybe this was. Because, like, Darlene was at the bar, and she kept trying to swipe what's-her-face's card, and it wouldn't work, and when they got back to her apartment, she kept trying to get the card, but then she locked in the safe, so she slept with her so she could be there while she was asleep in order to get the card out of the safe. But of course, I think Dom, and this is I kind of knew this too, that Dom was sort of playing drunk. She was playing with Darlene, but she knew all along that Darlene was trying to use her to hack her. I think she knew this all along, so I don't think she was pretending to be asleep. And, she knew, even when she slept with her, I think she knew, well, Darlene's trying something, so let's see if she actually tries something. And when she did, she was ready for it. But maybe I'm overthinking things here, but what if Darlene knew that Dom was beyond her, and that she knew that she would catch her, and as part of her plan to get caught in order to go to the FBI, and maybe, because we get the note from that Mr. Robot leaves Elliot, that the FBI is owned by the Dark Army, and of course he's told this or Mr. Robot is told this by Tyrell. So, follow me here. Tyrell knows that it was Santiago. He knows precisely who it is, and who in the FBI, who is controlled by the Dark Army. So what if he told Elliot? And Mr. Robot, sorry. So what if he told Mr. Robot? And what if Mr. Robot actually took control at one point and told Darlene, and just happened off screen? So what if Darlene knows it's Santiago? So what if all of this is a plan for her to out Santiago? I don't know. I think that maybe that's far-fetched. I'm just overthinking things here. I don't know. But, after, I think, not last week's, but episode 7 review, I was speculating on whether or not Dom was on to Santiago. Because it's obvious, she was on to the White Rose. She knew the Dark Army was involved. But I just wasn't sure if she picked up on Santiago's shady behavior. And I got several comments, some, people speculating that, oh yeah, Dom's definitely on to it. I think this episode proved that she wasn't. Especially because when she was talking to Darlene, she kept saying, oh, come in and testify, FBI. Which, if she knew Santiago was crooked, she knew that was a bad plan, and that wouldn't work. So I think it's very clear that she wasn't at the start of this episode. But by the end of the episode, oh yeah, she has his number for damn sure. She is definitely onto him now. Not a doubt about it. Because especially, like, the way Dom was looking at him when she was like, there's no reason not to trust Darlene here, not to go with her plan. Because she's right, this is what we want all along. This is exactly what he wanted. But he will not give a valid reason for why not to do it. He kept trying to change the subject about, oh, you slept with the whatever. And she's like, but this actually, she wasn't our informant at the time. We slept together. This is actually doesn't break any of the codes and you know it. And he ignored her. And they wouldn't give her a good reason. So I think for damn sure, and especially with Darlene telling Dom outright, you guys, the FBI, are under Dark Army's control. Telling her outright. So I think, and plus, I think Dom's smart. She's going to put everything together, like the way Santiago has been behaving this whole time, how he was gunning for it, leave the Dark Army alone, and how he was conveniently absent when the Dark Army attacked him, and the fact that he was so gung-ho about, penning Mobley and Trenton for the attack and saying it's all F Society. I understand. I don't think she was dumb to not realize this before now, because after all, it is her boss or whatever. But I think now, when she's told outright, the Dark Army FBI has a Dark Army agent, and you get this direct behavior that is probably the biggest clue. Like, there's absolutely no reason whatsoever for Santiago to not go with Darlene's plan unless he's with the Dark Army. So I think 100% she knows, and I do hope, this is another conclusion I hope we get in next week's episode. I hope Santiago dies or is outed or something. I hope he's no longer a factor. So that's another huge thing I hope happens. And so let's talk a bit about White Rose. I also hope that I predict that this Congo thing not going to happen. I mean, because they're not going to move the show to the Congo. And I think there's a reason why. This plan, the Washington Township, it's nearby. It has to do with Elliot. It's tied into Elliot. I think they're going to get into this a bit more. So I don't think anything is getting moved to Congo. Something's going to happen. I think maybe Elliot's going to figure out what's going on. He's going to do something to screw with the Dark Army, which is what I hope happens next week's episode. I hope he screws them up majorly in such a way that maybe that's why they don't kill him, because they need him to undo whatever he does. Spitballing here, but whatever it is, it's going to be amazing. I just cannot wait, and please renew season 4 as soon as possible. Put my mind at ease, please. Anyway, so my rating for stage 3 out of 10 is a 9. An excellent episode, really tense, edge of your seat stuff. Maybe not quite 10 material because it's more of a setup than a self-contained episode, but wow, one of the best setups you could possibly have. All the pieces are coming together. The acting was amazing. It was just such there was no wasted moment, no contrived crap like in last week's episode, but no wasted moment. Everything was tight, tense, awesome. So that's it for my review of Stage 3. Be sure to check out my channel as I continue to cover Mr. Robot. And also check out my channel as I do many more videos on other shows like Game of Thrones, Star Trek, The Expanse, and more. So be sure to subscribe so you can keep up with all of that. And thanks a lot for watching.